Hello students, today we will discuss about the large intestine or colon and the points of the large intestine or colon that are of practical importance for the students in the practical examination. Let's begin with the colon. This is the model that shows the large colon that is depicted in the greenish color. That is the large colon or colon, and this colon basically normally a colon that begins from the ileocecal junction and it terminates into the anal canal. A large intestine basically that has a lot of parts that includes appendix vermiform, and this is the part that is that is big and it is blind, that we call it the cecum, and the cecum that goes upward, and the, that goes into the ascending colon, and this is part of the colon, and then colon takes a turn to the right and it makes a bending and takes a turn, and we call it this part of the colon that is the right hepatic flexure, and this is the transverse colon, and again the colon takes turn and it goes downward, and this is called as the splenic flexure or left hepatic flexure of the colon, and this is the descending colon, and now the part of the colon that goes inside into the pelvic brim and goes inside the pelvic cavity, and that is called as the pelvic colon or sigmoid colon, where the sigmoid colon actually that continues with the rectum and it actually ends into the anal canal, and the anal canal basically it opens exteriorly with the opening and we call it the anus. This is the large intestine. And now for the students, the point for the practical examination, the student may be asked to identify the different parts of the colon, and so the student have to just know the point that with the help of these points the students may be able to distinguish different parts of the large intestine. Suppose in the spotting part, um, the, some part of the large intestine or colon may be presented before the student, and student may be asked to identify which part of the given specimen that belongs to the column, and the student have to just identify that is what would be this portion would be in the large intestine, and whether the given specimen is a appendix vermiform, whether the given specimen is the cecum as a part of the ascending colon, uh, transverse colon, descending colon, and sigmoid colon, or whether it is a rectum. So we have to just take all these structure one by one, and we should know some identifying feature, especially the one has to just distinguish this large intestine from the small intestine. As we know, the very peculiar feature that is specifically found in the large intestine, that is the presence of the Tinea coli, castrations, and that is the circulations, and the presence of the appendices epiploicy. These are the three features. And if you see the lumen of the large intestine, you would not find any villi. That is the exclusive features that defines the large intestine, and these features that you would not find in the small intestine. Every large intestine must it has a broader diameter as compared to the small intestine, and there would be the presence of the circulation. Circulation is outpouching that you see over the surface of the wall, the large intestine, over the wall of the large intestine. That is the very specific feature of the large intestine that makes it it is a pouching like appearance. We call it the circulation and the haustration, and other feature, that is the presence of the fibrous longitudinal bands, and these are actually the longitudinal converged fibers of the muscles of the large intestine that are found over the surface of the wall of the surface of the large intestine, over the wall of the large intestine. So these fibrous longitudinal bands are called as the teeny coli, tinea coli. They are three in numbers, and the other is the uh, appendices epiploicy, that is appendices epiploicy. These are the fat filled finger like projection that are found over the wall of the large intestine, and that is the very peculiar feature of the large intestine. If you find all these things, that indicates the given specimen, that is the large intestine. Now you have to just identify individually what are the different part of the intestine that is presented before you for the identification. And now we take the first part, that is the appendix vermiform. And you can just recognize the appendix vermiform because it is situated at the angle uh, that is between the cecum and the ileum. And if you are doing surgery, or if you are just doing dissection and you want to just locate the appendix, you can just trace the appendix. If you are doing operation or surgery, abdominal surgery, or you are just doing the dissection, you can just trace the appendix just knowing uh, the course and the progression of the tinea coli, and where the tinea coli actually that converges, that is the that is the location for the base of the appendix, where the appendix get attached to the cecum. So by just tracing the fibrous band, the tinea coli, you would be able to just trace the location of the appendix, that is the actually especially the base of the appendix, where all these three tinea coli they converge. That is the specific landmark for the presence of the base of the appendix, where you this is the technique. With the help of this technique, you would be able to just locate out the appendix in laparotomy, in doing the abdominal surgery, or in if you are doing dissection, you can easily locate the appendix. In the appendix you would not find any hostration, you would not find any appendices epiploicy, and even the tinea coli. But at the base, when all these tinea coli they converges at the base of the appendix, but over the length of the appendix you would not find all these things. Now suppose we take the another structure, that is the cecum. In this model, the cecum is not very obvious. Actually it is not so marked, but you have to just identify the cecum. In the Latin, the cecum means a blind pouch, and this cecum is the structure that has the same length and the same width, that is 7.5 centimeter in length and 7.5 centimeter in width. And the cecum also, uh, it does not have appendices epiploicy also. So you can just know this structure because it has attachment of the appendix. That is the identification of the cecum. It is the widest part actually, and the colon, when it commences, its diameter, its caliber is greatest when it progresses and it goes towards the rectum. uh, Actually its diameter, or in the anal canal, its diameter gets diminished. When it begins, its diameter is biggest. When it goes forward and it goes progresses, and its diameter becomes narrowed down. You can just identify the, if you are given the individualized cecum, so you can just distinguish it from the other part of the colon, just knowing the the attachment of the, if the attachment of the appendix that is present in the any given part of the colon, it means this specimen actually that is the cecum. Cecum is the widest part of the colon. It has same width and same length, and it does not have appendices epiploicy actually. And and this is the part actually where the tinea coli they start to diverge actually. This starts to divert because it is the point, it is the place where all the tinea coli they they actually convert, and from that point if you go further upward, it starts to diverge. And if you are given the ascending colon, the next part is the ascending colon. Ascending colon is basically it is a fixed part, and what would be the location of the tinea coli? Tinea coli basically they are three in numbers, and and we name it accordingly as a tinea libera, tinea mesocolica, and tinea aumentalis. And all these nomenclature, all these terms are actually they are named after its location in its transverse colon, and where they are actually situated in the transverse colon we actually name it accordingly, from which part of the transverse colon, and which position it is attached in the transverse colon, we actually name it. And the one part of the tinea coli, and we call it actually the tinea mesocolica. Tinea mesocolica is a fibrous longitudinal bands of tinea, and where actually this mesentery gets attached, and this is the bands where the mesentery actually gets attached. That's why we call it the tinea mesocolica, and it is situated in the transverse colon posteriorly, and posteriorly, and another tinea, that is the tinea libera, and the the fibrous band, that is the tinea aumentalis. Tinea aumentalis basically that is situated anterior superiorly, superiorly in the transverse colon, where the greater omentum gets attached, and from where we gets its name as a tinea aumentalis, because in the transverse colon where the greater momentum gets attached, and in that place uh, we actually take its name as a tinea aumentalis. And the part of the the transverse colon where the another type of the fibrous band that is situated, and we call it the tinea libera, because in this part of this colon, this fibrous longitudinal band does not have any structure, it is a free. That's why we call it the tinea libera. In the transverse colon, this tinea libera that is situated inferiorly, it is not connected to any other structure. That's why we call it the tinea libera. In the cecum, this tinea libera actually that is situated anteriorly. If the any given specimen of the colon, if this tinea libera basically that is situated anteriorly, and tinea mesocolica basically that is situated posterior medially actually, posterior medially, and the tinea aumentalis that is situated posterior laterally in the cecum. In the ascending colon, the same type of arrangement of the tinea that is situated, that is also found, the same type of the arrangement of the tinea coli, and tinea libera also situated anteriorly, and tinea mesocolica actually that is situated posterior medially, and the tinea aumentalis that is situated posterior laterally. All these bands actually that are situated in the ascending colon. Ascending colon, it is a retroperitoneal structure and it is fixed, and there is a paracolic gutter that is situated just lateral to it. You would find there is a right paracolic gutter, and another part, that is the transverse colon. Transverse colon, basically it measures around 50 centimeter in length, and it is a very mobile part of the large colon. It has got its mesentery, and we call it the transverse mesocolon. So these are the structure. It is transversely placed, and how would you just recognize if you are given the uh, cut section? Actually, the cut section, the cut portion of the transverse colon, you have to just distinguish it from the other part of the colon. This transverse colon, if you see the lumen of this transverse colon, and you can just easily identify the transverse colon here. This uh, You can just know the location of the band. This is the tinea coli, the tinea mesocolica. As I have already told you, the tinea mesocolica, basically that is situated posteriorly, and the tinea omentarius, that is situated anterior superiorly, and the tinea libera, that is situated inferiorly. So, so we named tinea accordingly its position in the transverse colon, and the part of the band that is not associated with any other structure, it is a free. So that's why we call it the tinea libera. Libera in this transverse colon, this tinea libera, basically that is situated inferiorly, and the posteriorly you would find this tinea mesocolica, and anterior superiorly you would find there is a tinea omenthalis. This is the transverse colon. If you are doing actually endoscopy, the colonoscopy, you would find, you can just easily understand of which part you are just seeing. Actually, if you if you seeing with the help of the colonoscope, the interior of the transverse colon appears to be triangular in its transverse section, and in its lumen. Its lumen appears to be triangular in shape if you are seeing it with the help of the colonoscope. And if you are doing the colonoscopy, the internal diameter appears to be triangular in shape. That is the very specific feature that would distinguish this transverse colon from the other part of the colon. Other part, that is the other feature that is very specific to the transverse colon, you can just identify this structure from the other structures. That is the presence of the mucosal folds that are just found in the whole internal circumference of this transverse colon. And this type of transverse mucosal folds, actually you would not find in any other part of the colon. And here the this mucosal fold that are found in whole its internal circumference. And in other part of the, especially the descending colon, the mucosal folds are found, but they are not in whole in whole circumference. It is situated, it is found semilunar, and we call it the plici semilunaris, but in the descending colon. And you can also identify the descending colon uh, if you see because this is the site where you diverticula that can be found. It is a pathological condition, and we call it the diverticulosis. And this is the descending colon, is one of the site where most of the times diverticulosis may occur. Other feature of the descending colon, the length of the descending colon is actually around 25 centimeter, and it is also fixed structure. It is a retroperitoneal structure, and just lateral to it there is a space or gutter. We call it the left left colic gutter, left paracolic gutter. And here the arrangement of the tinea libera basically, that is situated anteriorly, and tinea mesocolica, that is situated posterior medially actually, and uh, tinea ommentalis, that is situated posterior laterally. So these are the position of the tinea in the descending colon. With the help of just knowing the position of these tinea, you would be able to just distinguish it from the other part of the large intestine. And another part is the transfer, this pelvic colon or sigmoid colon. And this sigmoid colon, this is the part of the colon, and that starts from where the colon the descending colon ends, and it enters into the pelvic brim and goes inside the pelvic cavity, and this is the pelvic colon, sigmoid colon. Sigmoid colon has lot of appendices epiploicy that are situated at the sides of the wall of the sigmoid colon. And rectum is straight. It is straight part of the colon. You can easily find it out, and you would not find appendices epiploicy in this part. As you go forward, if you go further out, further if you go further from its commencement of the large intestine, and you would feel the tinea coli, these longitudinal fibrous band, they start to diverge out. Initially they are more nearer, more closer. If you go when it goes further away, it goes away and it becomes more apart. These are the different feature. With the and with knowing all these points, you would be able to just distinguish the different parts of the large intestine. And these the just knowing all these points, that would help you if you are doing surgery, also you're doing dissections, and in practically it would be important for you to just identification of the specimen. And this is all about the different parts of the large intestine. Thank you.